There's something truly special about media that keeps us hooked in the right way. We normally talk about really good books as page-turners or that they're impossible to put down, or TV shows that we binge because they're just too good to stop watching. Video games are often talked about as having addictive elements, whether they're MMOs which breaks up marriages, or, in more recent times, loot boxes causing kids to spend their parents' life savings because a shiny new weapon or a football player looked extra cool or something. Other games still hook us without relying on multiplayer or loot boxes, however. Take strategy games which are true time sinks, or absolute classics like The Witcher 3 or Skyrim. These open world games draw us in with gorgeous soundtracks, beautiful landscapes, and unique characters. But there's one series in particular which genuinely stands apart. And even though it's been said to death, there's something truly special about the Dark Souls series. A series which since 2011 has changed gaming forever. It spawned countless mimics, some better than others, yet none as perfect or unique as the games made by From Software themselves. For the record, I'm not here to give you a full overview of every Souls game or give you every reason for why I love them. What I do want to talk about, however, is why Dark Souls stands out among video games with a focus on its relation to mental health and healthy engagement. And the reason for this is that I've personally seen time and time again that people are talking about how Dark Souls, whether we're talking number 1, 2, or 3, have helped them overcome difficult situations, challenging times, or even conditions that are hard or impossible to fully escape. The idea for this video was born from that interest in finding out why so many people find Dark Souls so appealing. But it could not have been made without the help of several Redditors who contacted me and left very helpful comments and descriptions about their personal experiences with the games. Their experiences will hopefully be conveyed respectfully in this video, as I add my own thoughts and analysis to the comments I received. So, thank you very much to everyone who participated in the making of this video. And now, I give you Dark Souls, mental health, and you. There are a few themes that seem to reoccur in Dark Souls. The contrast between dark and light, persistence, determination, and the will to overcome, death, decay, rebirth, life and eternity, and of course, the concept of predetermination and an unending circle of the saving and the end of the world. These are all concepts which I would be hesitant to call joyful or happy, at least when related to Dark Souls. Coupled with the fact that the game is filled with hideous monsters, disfigured beasts, and murderous lords, it cements the idea that Dark Souls makes up a universe that does not want you in it. Your enemies will never show you mercy no matter your goals. It leaves you to your destiny in the most downtrodden of places, only for its friendlier faces to ask that you venture through the darkest of swamps, the deadliest dungeons, and climb the highest castles, all abandoned by the good, all overtaken by death. In my opinion, every Dark Souls game represents a different version of purgatory. It's hell in everything but name, but unlike hell, you have the chance to change everything by lighting every bonfire and linking the fire once more, filling the world with light anew. But the road there is one of the toughest in gaming. So tough that almost every difficult game out there is compared to Dark Souls nowadays. And this darkness, this state of continued depression and depravity, of downtrodden characters out on their luck, on blind women cursed with everlasting bondage, and indeed the hope inherent in the chosen undead, the bearer of the curse, and the Ashen One, is why it's so fascinating that Dark Souls has become a beacon for so many people dealing with hardships of a myriad of varieties in their own lives. So then, let's see what Dark Souls might do for people that other games simply can't. A person I spoke to, let's call him Eric, told me they had bipolar disorder, and said that Dark Souls helps escape the bad times, and that the difficulty of the games help with focus and concentration during overly excited ones. In many ways, Dark Souls worked like a good distraction, like a fidget spinner, they said, and a way to block other things out when it's difficult to otherwise do so. I think this is really interesting because I think Dark Souls functioning as a fidget spinner is a very good analogy. It not only keeps you interested, but it also lets you focus on something. This remark and observation is also so dependent on the gameplay inherent in Dark Souls, I imagine. It's difficult, it doesn't pull punches, it demands that you focus at all times, that you cover your steps, or that you pay attention to what might be ahead. For myself, and I don't live with bipolar disorder for the record, find myself being all the more attentive and focused playing these games because you really have to be to succeed in them. One wrong move will get you killed, and in games where you lose all of your currency from dying, that's a pretty big deal. I think the more difficult aspects of Dark Souls is something that resonates with a lot of people, and it's perhaps the single aspect of the games which make them so unique and compatible with people who feel that these aspects lack in many other games or indeed other pastimes altogether. Another person I talked to, let's name him Jack, revealed that they were living with autism. This was not a diagnosis they received early on in life. Rather, they were made fully aware of it only at the age of 14. At the same time, they suffered from emotionally and sometimes physically abusive parents who would even use the autism diagnosis as an excuse for behaving abusive towards their children, including Jack. For anyone experiencing similar things, stories like these let you know that you're not alone in experiencing this, no matter how dark and lonely it may seem. And this is also how we once again turn to Dark Souls. For Jack, Dark Souls offers an escape. Whether the gameplay or the world building, Dark Souls 3 in this case, represented something else than the expectations of daily life. In a few personal words courtesy of Jack, it offers an escape and helps me feel like I can make it through anything. I admit I don't know much about autism, but I'm very glad and thankful that Jack made me aware of a concept known as a special interest. A special interest is essentially a kind of hobby, but one which is defined by the person's intense love or absorption of it, sometimes even making it the only thing they want to do or talk about. Approximately 75 to 90% of people with autism experience such special interests, and I'm sure a lot of people outside of the autism community can relate to being completely enchanted by something they come to love as well, although perhaps not as intensely. What I love about Jack's words, how Dark Souls makes him feel like he can make it through anything, is the fact that it resonates with how so many others feel about the game. We're back to one of the themes we talked about in the beginning, about persistence and overcoming your biggest challenges. I think it's admirable and frankly awesome that people who might struggle with conditions in real life, conditions which they have no way of fully controlling, see so much potential and get so much joy out of a game where struggle is not just an idea, but the human condition. This concept of overcoming is perhaps the most common thread when talking about Dark Souls. And this might sound strange when what we mostly view or read about are how tough and relentless these games are. But everything in this video, and frankly a lot of what we see of Dark Souls on the fan pages, whether that is people finishing the game at level 1 with a broken sword or defeating a boss completely blindfolded, is that the challenge and the feeling of accomplishment is what keeps people playing. It's hard, sure, but it forces you to take a step back and think. Learn enemy movements, and try again until you're just a little bit better than you were last time you failed. Perhaps all you need is one more perfect dodge or one more successful hit, and if you persist, perhaps your next try will be the one where you succeed. And in Dark Souls, there's always a next time, unless you stop trying, of course. Another player, Mark, recounted how Dark Souls was different than anything he'd ever played before. He used to play first-person shooter games, fast-paced games where you can run into a firefight and come out on top with few immediate consequences. The first time he played Dark Souls, he rage quit after 6 hours and swore never to play the game again. But then he returned after a few weeks, finding that every small victory felt special to overcome, that beating every new boss meant so much more than the fear of failing. It meant so much more to him because, as a child, his mother was rarely present. His sister physically abused him. And just like with Jack, gaming became an escape for Mark. But rather than just being an escape like the shooter games became, Dark Souls added a purpose and sense of accomplishment to every hour spent playing. The fact that he could take pride in overcoming the game's challenges was something no one could take away from him, something he could learn all by himself, and symbolized something much stronger than the often empty and fleeting fulfillment of getting an extra kill in a random FPS. He welcomes the challenge head on, smiling back at a game whose enemies does nothing but flare its teeth at him. A theme we've touched upon so far is trauma, so far mainly from family life or outside conditions, and how Dark Souls has functioned as a means of escape. We continue with this when we hear that Adrian lost their home during a flood from Hurricane Ida in Pennsylvania. Before fire teams could help them out, they were trapped in the attic with their dog, and later watched as their house washed away in the hurricane. Adrian lost their gaming PC in that flood, but a friend gave away their PlayStation 4, which enabled them to play Dark Souls 3. The best PTSD therapy has been just playing through the game and fighting different enemies along the way, Adrian told me. And that sentence really warmed my heart. I can't imagine the heartache, stress, and subsequent difficulties that came away from that hurricane. But the fact that Adrian was able to get some joy in the aftermath, from nothing less than a game that does everything but coddle you and tell you it's going to be okay, is amazing, and says a lot about how Dark Souls can turn something that on the surface is so despicable and full of suffering, i.e. its own world, into something that works as a kind of therapy for those afflicted by devastating hardships in the real one. Speaking of therapy, Lisa, who used to work as a licensed therapist, faced a workplace where the challenges were real, human, and more often than not, extremely difficult to truly ever fix. But when Lisa came home, playing Dark Souls was cathartic, a sort of therapy on its own. It might not have made her job any easier, but it acted as a place for her to vent her negative emotions, and as an avenue for actually winning battles in a real and definite way, whereas at her job, in her own words, "There are fights I have no hope of winning." Lisa is not alone in facing hard to overcome challenges in her work life. I spoke to two others, Jim and Riley, who both work in the food industry. Jim works as a chef and describes it as being challenging and stressful, having to deal with a difficult job or people that make it harder. For him, Dark Souls represents the much needed hit of dopamine when life outside seems harsher than the game. The fact that you can meet and face other peoples in the game as well, or even play alongside them through summoning, also means that one can interact with people in moment-to-moment gameplay. You deal with the challenge right then and there, rather than dealing with the same people day in and day out, and there's something refreshing and freeing about that, I think. The feeling of discovery and learning how to become better, and see the results from this, is what draws Jim to the game, saying that no other game provides that same feeling. On Riley's end, they too worked in the restaurant business, but broke their foot at the end of a 10-year-long career. Not being able to walk for 6 months, at the beginning of the pandemic no less, Riley said it kinda felt like dying. In this period of their life, Dark Souls piqued an intense interest. The game helped prove that, despite being down, Riley wasn't out, and was still able to learn new things, even play alongside others at the same time in player versus player situations during social isolation. But Riley also commented on a theme we've mentioned before, the idea of eternal recurrence. The same things are going to happen again and again. The only thing that can change is the way you choose to respond. Going without saying, that is a central aspect of the Dark Souls series, that not only will the flames go out, but you will have to rekindle them, only for the cycle to continue. And Riley related this to their own experiences. It's a motto that I carried into every kitchen shift I ever showed up for, they said. And the only thing they can do while they're in that position is try to do better the next day. I find this to be such a marvelous way of taking a video game concept and applying what you've experienced to situations in real life. And honestly, I genuinely think Dark Souls can help with creating more patient and more resilient people. People who are not afraid of trying and failing. It probably definitely helps if this is something one is conscious about though. But still, even if lessons in Dark Souls are first and foremost only applied to playing other video games, I think there is potential for a ton of personal change here. I am by no means a raging gamer myself, but I do have my moments where everything I want to do is toss the controller away. But you know, those moments are very few and far between. I'll get annoyed, frustrated, and maybe need a few hours or days away from the game before I try again. But then, all of a sudden, everything loosens up, and before you know it, you've made it. Dark Souls is proof that patience is everything. That failing 15 times and finally succeeding feels so much better than winning on your first try. I kid you not when I say that there are games where I purposefully dance around the boss in order to make the fights longer or seem more epic. But if I were to try that in Dark Souls, I'd have my ass handed to me quicker than you can say bear seek lest.
Bear seek lest.
See? That's pretty quick. All of these stories and backgrounds differ slightly, but I feel like they all touch upon and value the same aspects. How Dark Souls teaches perseverance, patience, the joy of overcoming and accomplishing feats you never thought possible the first time around. Another aspect which I think helps bring players of all kinds into the Dark Souls universe is the way the games convey their stories. Dark Souls never holds your hand and rarely or never explicitly explains its characters' motivations or backgrounds. And even though certain story beats or threads are more evident than others, you can easily miss 90% of what these games offer if all you do is play to win. As we know though, this type of story would not be as engaging if the world of Dark Souls wasn't as empty, as abandoned, as left in ruins as it is. And this point fascinates me, because, and I'm speaking for myself here, I've never been a fan of scary games. I'm one of those people who used to turn down the volume when Sephiroth came on in Kingdom Hearts 1. And for the record, I find Dark Souls to be horror games, at least games with a heavy horror influence. And yet, my scaredy cat ass has managed to beat every single one. I have played these games despite my fear, in spite of not wanting to turn that dark corner or never feeling at ease in a world full of monsters. And perhaps that was my own battle to fight, one Dark Souls is helping me win little by little. This fact, that Dark Souls offers little but depression and abandon in terms of visuals and atmosphere, makes it even stranger that people flock to these games when their lives are hard or they struggle with demons of their own. One would be inclined to think that it's much easier to escape into the colorful and happy world of Kingdom Hearts or the more fantastical world of Skyrim, perhaps, and I'm not denying that games like Skyrim and The Witcher serves as perfect examples of therapy games. I'd know. But perhaps the horror of Lordran, Drangleic, or Lothric somehow makes real life less frightening. And as one person noted, the sadness and harshness of the Dark Souls world just makes me feel better about my own life. Lol. And you know, that's totally fair. And I think there's a comfort in knowing that, well, as hellish and depressing and utterly shambolic things are right now, they could always be worse. I mean, you could be playing Kingdom Hearts 3. And if you do something about your situation, if you try and try again, despite failing 9 times out of 10, you can make the here and now that much better. Because all that matters is that one time at the very end where you did succeed, where you proved to yourself that you can indeed improve and become a better you. And perhaps that is the true message and meaning of Dark Souls. Thank you so much for watching. This video could not have been made without the people contributing with their own thoughts and life experiences, and I'm very grateful that you managed to share that with me. So a very special thanks to each and every one of you. If you feel like Dark Souls has managed to help you somehow, let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, I hope you'll consider leaving a like, a comment, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.